everyone. Welcome to today's show. I am feeling so honored and excited to have Laurie Keene here with me today. Laurie Keene is currently the Dean of the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, both here in the United States and in Europe. And she's really spent her life on this path of really understanding herself and us and this transformational work. She's just, I really have learned so much. So it's been such an honor to have you here today. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Laurie's also a spiritual channel, and she has a private practice in New Jersey, yeah?
Yes, but most work is long distance.
Yeah, she works with people all over the world, so it's a great opportunity for us to dive in today and get to know her work and see how we can just dive into this area, this topic of consciousness and transformational work. The other thing I want to share is that she's also a Continuum teacher, and she studied with Emilie, Conrad, which is an amazing body of work. She studied with Rosalind Bruyere, and really, Laurie, you've been on the forefront of this work for, since the 70s, which is just so amazing. Thank you. Yeah. So I'd love to just hear, to start on our journey today, a little bit about your personal journey and how you got into this field and what really excites you about it.
Thank you. And thanks for having me here, Julie. I'm so happy to be with you too, having known you for many years.
Yeah.
I think I've always been interested in what I call the big questions. Who are we? Why are we here? What really is, the meaning of life? And I think I kind of was going merrily along in my life until my mid-20s, when I had a life-threatening illness and basically ended up in and out of hospitals for 3.5 years. I think my first bout, I spent 3 weeks in the hospital in almost a coma, just from, I think I had 3 surgeries in those 3 weeks, and spent the next 6 months recovering, and then just bounced in and out again until I had a final surgery at the age of 26. And, at that time, I felt like I was about 80 years old. And I was 26. And my body was depleted. My spirit was confused. I was emotionally depressed, just from the illness itself. And, I was put in such a position of like, why am I even here? I really had no idea. And so I felt like my parents lived in Africa, and my mother had come home to take care of me after my last surgery. And I remember looking at her and saying, if I don't get help, I'm going to jump out this window.
Wow.
And it was more of a metaphor.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have seriously done that. And it also did speak to my emotional state at the time. So I got into therapy, and my first therapist, I will always thank her for this, she taught me to meditate.
Wow.
And that really catapulted me onto my spiritual path. And I found myself spending 1 to 2 hours a day meditating to just focus and quiet my mind. And it was out of that real dedication to wanting to be healed. That's what really put me on the path. It wasn't about trying to save anybody else. I was trying to save my own life. And through the dedication of just meditating, and then I left my job. I went and traveled around the world for about 1.5 years, and I hiked and I swam and I got my body back. What opened me in meditation was, by quieting the mind, I began to have direct experiences of what I call the truth of who you are. And, as humans, one of the things that's so beautiful about us is that we are naturally generous. And when we get something, it is our natural generosity that we want to give it back. And so that's how I got into teaching. It's my passion. I love being with people when they are on the path and when they hit those moments. And I know that I can see those moments so clearly in people when they get that essential part of themselves that I know no matter what happens in their life, they will always have that core sense of self, and they'll be able to make their way through whatever life brings them.
Yeah.
So for me, and I always tell my students, that's the goal for me. That's why I do what I do. And for me, the path continues too.
Yeah, I really love that about you, and that the way you share with our community your own journey, and the way you've taught is really sharing your own journey. So there's this sense that there's, you're really on the path. I can feel it, and it helps me as a student, to stay the course and to see the rewards of it, and that the path doesn't really end.
No, I don't think it ever ends, no matter how awakened, aware, enlightened one becomes, because that's the other thing, so I went through that in the 70s, and then in the mid 80s, I hit another big pitfall. And it was, I had to really confront, it was through the dissolving of a marriage. I had to confront addiction and the presence of alcoholism in my family history.
Mm-hmm.
And it was during that time, again, I hit another very low point, and through grace, I was given a week of being absolutely awakened. And what I brought back from that experience is, we are eternal. The only thing that could ever possibly die is the thought that we exist, that kind of egoic identity. And the other thing is that we're all one. You and I were individuated facets,
Right.
reflections of the divine, and we are all one. So yeah, we're always on a path.
Yes. So tell me, why do you think it is that as humans, we have to go through those challenging experiences of addiction or marriage breaking or whatever? What do you think that on that bigger soul level, like, why?
I'm writing about that right now, and it's interesting to me because, on a bad day, I can go, this doesn't make any sense. Why am I having to deal with this again?
Yeah.
On a good day, and there are more good days than bad days.
That's good.
One goes along the path. There is I call it spiritual maturation. There is an understanding of the perfection of all of these different pieces that you might call obstacles, okay, in the journey. Why do we have to experience loss? Why do we have to experience traumatic events in our life? And again, from the broader perspective, the spiritual perspective, it's all laid out in service to us as a means of really coming to recognize the truth within us. It's on a human level, it seems very confusing at times.
Right, why would we do that?
Yeah, exactly. Why would we do that? I know I have some clients who say, I'm never coming back here.
I have that too.
After this life I've done, and I'm like, I sit there and I go, okay, you might not.
Yeah, who knows?
Going somewhere.
Right.
And from the broader perspective, there are a lot of souls very eager to incarnate here because there's also incredible beauty here.
Yeah. It's amazing how I find in my own humanness, like I can have those moments of like, thank God to be here, to have this experience. And then whoop, like right into that epicenter of that obstacle being like, humans, like what's going on? Why are we, it's just that, the duality of our experience.
And I'll tell you something with that, okay? Because my experience has shown me over time, and again, going to spiritual maturation, All right. It's that place, I call it the place of non duality,
Mm.
where even when a dualistic experience is occurring,
Right.
okay, one has the ability to sit in the center of it all and hold it all.
Yeah.
And that kind of changes the playing field of your life when you can do that. Like, I know, just moving from a place of when I used to experience what we call the emotional wound,
Hmm.
which, when you fall into that can just feel like death,
Hmm. Yep.
to when I experience it now, it's a place that I hold.
Right.
I'm not caught by it anymore.
Right.
I'm not like identified with, oh, this is it.
Right.
It's not that. It's like, okay, so there's pain here. I hold that. I hold this, and I can also hold this greater
Yes.
experience.
Yeah. And that the capacity to do that keeps growing as we mature, as we keep staying on this path. And I call that the pathway to myself. This place that you said that you've been with me and my journey through Barbara Brennan, and others have as well, where before I didn't have yet the capacity to hold those places. And then it's grown. I call that the pathway to myself, that I know I have that. You were speaking about that. And
That's
when you see a
beautiful.
client who now has that essence that they've reclaimed, that they can hold that they're going to take that with them throughout their whole life. And it does change the playing field, and it makes, life, we can kind of drop into it and breathe through it a little bit more.
That's true. And to embrace it for the adventure that it is.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, well, we need to take a short break, everybody, but Laurie's with us for a lot longer here today, which is super exciting, because there's a transmission I feel when you share that's it's really valuable, and it feels really sweet. So thank you. So we'll be right back to keep sharing. All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm here again with Laurie Keene, who is sharing some of her wisdom with us today, and really, how do we navigate this path of transformation and our humanity? And it's just a joy to really dive in. It's my favorite topic. So,
Mine too.
yeah. So, one of the things that a lot of people who are listening in today are maybe in transition in their life, coming, really from a more mainstream model into this world, it might be really, really new. So I'd love to just start a conversation around that. What is it you think that place is when we're really living and doing things that aren't aligned with our soul yet? How do we start that navigation through, like the thing that opens us into something that's more aligned with who we are?
I think essential to that is to begin paying attention to the
Hmm.
places in our life where we're uncomfortable, unhappy, restless, where we might feel empty. Places where we find we're in resistance.
Hmm.
These are the places, and I talk about this a lot. I call these, the holy temple, because these places are really, they're knocking on the door, and they're trying to get your attention. And a lot of people are more comfortable with denial and sort of that almost subcutaneous pain
Yes.
of existence. So again, it's easy to kind of just live with that.
Right.
So for those in transition, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who can identify with feeling restless or empty or bored or unfulfilled or questioning, okay? You have to start paying attention. And the best way to pay attention that I have learned is to really slow the moment down. Like, if you're unhappy with something, slow it down and go into inquiry. Don't just go over it. Drop into inquiry. What am I unhappy about? And then here's the second thing to that, and that is it takes courage.
Mm.
It takes courage, and we all have it.
Mm-hmm.
We do. We have it. It's as natural to us as generosity,
Mm.
and it is the courage to just take the first step towards towards wanting to be happy.
Yeah.
Towards wanting to have a sense of purpose, because I guarantee you, I took a first step and then I was met.
Yes.
And then I took another step and I was met. And that has always been the case. So you have to take the first step, pay attention, ask the question, have the courage to take the first step. We are always, in every moment of our lives, we are supported by both the seen, friends, family, nature, as well as the unseen, by spirit. And I've said this for years. I promise my students and my clients, if you do that, it only gets better.
It's true. And, a lot of times in those moments where it takes courage to step into, it doesn't feel like we're going to be met. Otherwise we would have taken that step already. Like in those moments, I just like to think back, where have I not really been met? We can all go back to experiences in our life where we did say yes to that. Oh, this is the way that's calling me, a little risk. And usually remember that experience of life showing up in that way.
Yeah, and that's important to hold on to too. And my work over the years with people, they'll say, "Oh, I don't know if I'm really progressing." And I go, "Okay, well, just go back a year, go back 2 years," and it's like, "Oh yeah, I am in such a different place than I was 2 years ago."
Yeah.
It's important. It's important to remember those moments.
Yeah, one of the things that I remember Priscilla, one of the faculty at the Barbara Brennan School, saying was that she was reading her first year's homework assignment 25 years later, and she realized she was still working on the same things. And I think that was at the beginning of my journey. I was like,
I know.
What? But it's not. It's where we're at with those same life lessons that are moving through us. They do change. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, and we work with themes. We come into our lives with a plan. A spiritual plan, whether we're aware of it or not. We come in to heal a certain misunderstanding. And as we heal that misunderstanding in any given incarnation, that's really adding to a return to wholeness.
Yeah.
And I know, I've been teaching the first year students since, I guess I started in 91 in teacher training with Barbara. And I mean, nobody wanted to hear, that 20 years later, someone's still working with the same.
No, that's hear that.
Done. It's supposed to be healed. I'm supposed to be living in absolute nirvana.
Yep.
It doesn't work like that.
I think it's really important to put that out there and to share that, because being on the path like you have and still being on the path is so, it gives a lot of hope when you're just starting that, oh, okay, let's be realistic about what this looks like. It gets better. And there's that connection that comes. And then there are still places that themes. I love that, like calling it a theme that we're working with.
It's true.
Yeah.
And also, as some themes lessen or more or less resolve, then other themes that may be underneath that come to the surface. Because again, I mean, if you look at the natural world, right? The natural world is always in a state of growing. It's growing, it's resting, it's dying, it's being reborn. I mean, we're the same. So we're in a constant state of growth. And this is why I always have such great hope for humanity. You hear a lot of kind of negativities like doom for us. And, having had many years okay, of doing what I love, which is teaching, and having had that week where absolutely everywhere I looked, all I could see was the most brilliant light in everyone and everything. And all I could feel in everyone and everything was an absolute state of love.
Mm.
And this incredible peace that runs through all of us. So, so knowing that this is the truth of who we are, I have great hope for us, you know, individually and as a species,
Mm.
because it's who we are.
Yeah. So what do you say about all that doomsday, and, where is its place in this journey of us as a whole, us as a humanity, the ways that we do disconnect and move into duality?
Yeah, and pretty much live from a sense of duality and separation. Again, it's a good day, bad day. Question and answer. On most days, which are good days, my answer would be that it has its divine place.
Mm.
And I know you graduated last year, right? Last year it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
So last year I was bringing up my whole practice at Wegmans, which is a
Right.
great.
I love that. I think about that a lot in the supermarket now.
So, on a good day, I understand that all of the uh, things are coming to the surface. Okay, our misunderstandings, our anxieties. We are experiencing, I think, as a species, the pain of separation, perhaps more than we ever have.
Mm.
Okay. I also believe that we have more awareness and more tools than we've ever had to deal with it. And more people like you, like me, like the millions and billions maybe on the planet who are really actively, consciously awakening, okay, are helping to hold that awareness for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that these places of separation that we experience in the world, okay, are part of the design.
Yeah.
It can't be any different than the separations that we have within ourselves. You know, it's like people meet somebody, they fall in love, and they have these expectations that the other and the relationship with the other is supposed to be perfect. And when it isn't, they fall into deep questioning. And I always go, well, I don't know if they love me. And I go, okay, well, do you know if you love you every day?
Yeah.
No, you don't. So how can we expect others
Right.
to have that absolute? And it's the same thing kind of in the big picture of what we see going on in the world too.
I like that. That really supports me in feeling, as I heal those little places, I hold my duality. I don't necessarily not step off of the path of it, but I keep holding it. There's this holding that's happening in our greater whole, in our humanity, or for the whole billions that are here, that's happening. It makes it a little bit more tangible for how we as individuals can serve that process of living in a world that's more peaceful, that's more connected, that we feel that fulfillment and sense of purpose.
Yeah, and the other piece to that too, and I also studied with Byron Katie,
and
I love her work, and I completely agree. But again, this is from a much broader perspective, okay? Is we are making this up.
Right.
I mean, that week where I was totally awakened, I really saw how all of this, what we call the physical plane or duality, is truly a play of consciousness. Now, I know that might be a challenging concept for some people to grasp.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not something you can really convince somebody of.
Mm-mm.
It's something you have to have a direct experience of it. Once you do, everything changes.
Mm.
So it's kind of like holding all of that,
Yeah.
you know?
Right. We're
And
here, we're physical being with it, and then the greater awareness of the truth.
exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we need to take another short break, but we're going to come right back, everyone, with more from Laurie Keene as we deep dive into these big questions. I love that we're just diving into the big questions. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, everyone. We're back with Laurie Keene, and we've been asking some big questions and really feeling into the wisdom that's here that you're sharing. Thank you. It's almost like when someone shares their direct experience of some of these things, we can start to question those questions ourselves. It helps to have a more cellular experience of those experiences you've had just by your sharing of them. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So where should we go next?
Well, you know what? Actually, where I want to go to is back to that week for a moment.
Uh-huh.
Because you asked about, like what helps to kind of support people in
Mhm.
that transition. Okay.
Yes.
So at that point in my life, okay, I was married, and my husband at the time, my ex-husband now, I guess, was in recovery
Mm.
for addiction. And I went to a meditation center for a one-day workshop, and it was called The Power of the Mind. And I was so, I was just in so much emotional distress because I had come out of that illness like 5 years earlier. Okay. I'd done a lot of inner work. I had been meditating for years. I had really come to such a place within myself, and then was kind of catapulted back down into the dirt. And so I was so distraught. And I think sometimes we have to get to those places where we can just kind of be broken open.
Mm.
And it's interesting. Somebody said, you're never given more than you can handle.
Mm.
So whatever it was that had kind of built up over the work that I'd already done, and being in such a vulnerable place, I went to this workshop. They talked a little bit, and then we sat to meditate, and we started to chant a mantra, Om Namah Shivaya, which has been my mantra since the 70s in my meditations. And it was like I was just ready. I was just ready to be kind of broken open and to experience the grace and to be enlightened. And you hear so many stories, right? Like Eckhart Tolle saying, I can't take this anymore. And Byron Katie.
Yeah.
And Ramana Maharshi, too, who had an obsessive fear of death.
Wow.
And a question, who is the I that dies and spontaneously awakened?
Right.
So if we get to the spiritual purpose, if we go back to your earlier question about the spiritual purpose, like why do we have these experiences, these very difficult experiences?
Right.
Okay. And again, it's because they are there to serve this opening to us. So I would say to people, no matter where you are, if you are in a place of such anger or desperation or grief, just know that is that is really here to help you open to the love within you.
Break down, break through. Sometimes.
That's true. Break down, break through, wake up.
Yeah, wake up. Do you think that there's a part of us that has to make that choice, and that those moments can come and we can say no and we can continue suffering?
Yeah, absolutely. We have free will. Barbara did a channeling about that years ago, about one of our incarnational gifts is that we're given free will. Now, having said that, it has also been my experience that spirit is can also be very persistent, okay, in the guidance and the message when you are faced with a choice of free will and you are also being prompted to really follow divine will. And I
Mm.
can give you an example of that. When I was traveling around the world, I lived in Greece. I may have shared this story with you.
I think I'm going to know it, but I'd love for you to share with our audience.
Yeah, and again, I've been meditating for a few years, and it was really starting to heal. And I was living in a little town in Greece, and it was at the end of an evening, and I went back to my house, and there had been an altercation in town, okay, that I'd been witness to, and I went back to my house. And I was running a house on the Aegean at the time. And I heard a voice, and the voice was outside of me.
Mm-hmm.
It was like you talking to me. It wasn't in my head. And the voice said, "Get up, pack your bags, and leave now." And I'd never heard a voice before like that.
Ah!
And I was kind of like, who's saying that?
Wow.
It just kept saying it
Wow.
all night long.
Wow.
And I started arguing with the voice.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Hey, I'm not schizophrenic, I promise you." And I'm not Bernadette. This is not the song of Bernadette. However, it was like that, the song of Bernadette, because this voice just kept saying, "Get up, pack your bags, and leave now." And I kept coming up with every excuse. I have a job. My friends are coming from the United States. This is before cell phones. They'll never find me. And it was just insistent. So when dawn came, I said, "You win. I will leave." And I did. I quit my job. I caught the first bus out of there.
Wow. That's
And
some trust.
yeah, and it's interesting because I learned something about divine will. We talk about the fifth level and divine will as divine perfection.
Right.
Order. As soon as I got off the bus and started walking up the street, my friends from the United States started walking towards me. They'd come early.
They found you.
Now, a week later, to make a long story short, we were getting ready to leave that island, and someone came running up to me saying that they'd heard that the blonde woman in Zorbas had died the night before. And I went back to the village, and in fact, my friends had been in a terrible car accident the night before, and 3 had died immediately.
Wow.
And one who I helped to facilitate, she was in Athens and, worked with the British consulate, and her mother, she died a few days later. Mm-hmm. And the only one who somewhat survived the car accident was the woman who had been mistaken for me.
Wow.
They said the tall blonde woman at Zorbas. So, and she was the same physical height and hair color as me. So what I got out of that was I had free will, and divine will was also intervening and saying, we want you to leave. It's not your time. Mm. You have a lot to do here. It's not your time. Mm. And you have a choice. Are you going to follow divine will, or are you going to choose free will? So since that time, because I know oftentimes people are resistant, they think, oh, if I give over my will, if I follow divine will, I'm giving up myself. And in fact, my experience is that divine will and your higher self will, they're the same.
Yes.
There's no place that divine will is trying to take you that is not beautiful for you, even though it may be challenging.
Right. And requires some facing of old beliefs and places we need to heal to trust that and know that.
Yeah. And that's part of the lesson that I learned through it.
Yeah.
I've always trusted that voice since then, and it has come to me.
Does it come from the outside still?
Still, yeah.
Wow.
I guess about 5 times since then. Uh-huh. And at very, very important times. Wow. It's changed the course of my life. I always listen to it.
That sounds wise.
A quick follow-up story. I married. And God bless him too. I mean, we both really learned a lot from each other. But I met him in a restaurant after I'd gotten home, and I was in such a place of peace. And he walked by me, and I looked at him, and he looked at me, and I was kind of like, "No, don't even go there." And the voice said, "Get up and go meet that man."
This is before you met him. The first.
Yeah.
Okay. Ah.
I did. Now, I always tell my students when we're talking about guidance, the voice did not say, "Get up and go marry them."
That's true.
Guidance can be very specific. So the great thing about that marriage, and it really was a gift, though during the time of it and dealing with the addiction was not. It really taught me about alcoholism, which had been in my family history, and I didn't know anything about it. It taught me that the path is a razor's edge.
Hmm.
You know,
What do
that
you mean by that?
it's easy to fall off of it and to start forgetting and to start denying. And so I knew that I had to dedicate my life to being on the path. So yeah, so that relationship brought me many gifts. I'm forever grateful for it, even though following divine will took me through some personal pain. It was like divine, spirit was saying, okay, you've had some really good experiences here. You've got a whole lot of yourself. Now we have to take you deeper. There's more to.
Yeah. And the divine will of how it's unfolded in that way. You had enough of yourself to go through the next level of personal pain that was there for you so that you could have more of yourself. It's such a beautiful process. Went on a good day.
So true.
Yeah.
It's like really giving yourself over to the process of living rather than resisting it.
Yeah. There's an aliveness of being on that razor's edge and that edge of okay, that comes from it that I find it's like I can feel my body more alive and
Yeah. And by the razor's edge, I'm not saying perfection. Okay. I mean, I'll step off of it every now and then. It's like, I say, okay, just give me a little normal life here today.
Yeah.
And again, that's part of our humanity.
Yeah, letting ourselves have that normal life experience and moments of falling off and
forgiving ourselves, for that, allowing it.
Yeah. I'll never forget when you shared that quote that forgiveness is the fragrance that's released when a violet is crushed. I'm not saying it exactly right, but
yeah, I know. Isn't that a beautiful quote? Yeah.
That the forgiveness for me has been such a unknown, but foundational part of this path. Something I'm still learning about, and it seems, I don't know what you have to share about that, but it seems to be almost like a lubricant of life.
Well, I always say that, and I live my life by this. Okay, if you get the lesson and you receive the gift out of every experience, you can't be bitter. And when people are bitter, they haven't forgiven. And most importantly, people don't forgive themselves.
Right.
Now, I think there is value in experiencing remorse because remorse can prompt us to living more wisely. What I call living amends. It's not just saying I'm sorry. It's not living like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's living like I got it.
Yeah.
Lesson.
Right.
Now, okay, I've received the gift, and now I'm moving in my life in a very different way.
Those are painful moments when you realize that, or when I've realized that what I'm doing is harmful to another.
Yeah.
My first instinct has been to shame myself, like, and then the forgiveness comes, and the remorse is that difference from self-shaming, but just instead saying, like, I just want to do it differently.
Exactly. And a lot of people too, they'll get caught up besides just shaming oneself and rather than feeling the remorse of the harm that they're doing, they defend and blame what the other person has done. And, to me, the essence of all of our work is it doesn't matter what other people have done or what they're doing. It matters how you are with it.
Mm.
So I learned a long time ago. I hope I always remember this. I can't change anybody.
Yeah.
And, oftentimes we move through life like, well, if so-and-so would just be this way, or my job would just be that way, or this, and we try and arrange our lives from the outside rather than from the inside out. Mm. So remorse is, I think, really beautiful in that it gives us the opportunity to, as you say, really experience the sadness of, where we've missed people.
Yeah.
And how can we then not miss them, in the next time we meet?
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's take one more short break and we'll be back. We can continue diving into these topics that are just feel so valuable to just bring some light to and share about. So from such personal experience. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everyone, welcome back. I'm joined with Laurie Keene today, which has been an amazing honor, and I just love the depth and the authenticity. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's great to be here with you.
Thanks. I wanted to ask about these voices that you speak of. Part of my own journey has been opening to channel and feeling the weirdness of that, and I don't know, it's, if we're coming from a mainstream model, part of the awakening is letting those, our senses open and the veils become a little bit thinner. Can you just speak to that process for yourself, and what is that really about?
Really? Well, I speak to all mainstream people here. I understand totally. And the thing is, it's, you use the word authenticity. You can't make this stuff up. And I think what one does, I'm going to go back to kind of the first step, okay, is you take that first step, and then you're going to be stretched. You're going to be led. You're going to be opened in a way that is meaningful for you and that confirms, okay, and grows you in a way that's meaningful for you. Not everybody's going to hear voices. Believe me, I did not ask to hear that voice.
Right.
I was as shocked as anybody would be.
Right.
Hearing that voice. Now that's very different than when I'm channeling. However, I will tell you, when I first started studying with Barbara, I was a novice. Okay. People were in the room. They'd been studying the work for years. They were, they were healers. They were psychotherapists. At the time I was a chef.
Uh-huh.
All I knew that I wanted was to be healed. That's it. That's why I was doing what I was doing. And Barbara would channel her guide, Heowin, and I was like, no way am I doing that. I'm not letting some energy into me. I didn't have me. I didn't have enough of me to even have space to trust that an energy coming into me could be benevolent and very wise.
Right.
So, and I think that's really important for people to know, because the channeling, and I do a lot of it now in my work, is the channeling's really coming just from a broader, non-egoic perspective. Okay, I did not begin channeling until it was absolutely right and natural for me. And I'll give you an example of this. In the school, we do these meditations right at the end of the week. Well, when I started with Barbara, I started studying with her in '86. And I started traveling with her in, I guess it was my senior year in '92. And then I started working with her full time in '93. We would go around and do these workshops, and she would always sit on the stage and lead these meditations and channel. And I would sit off stage. And this was in Boston. I think it was in '94. And I was sitting off stage, and I heard the words, allow the sweetness.
Mm.
And Barbara opened her mouth and said, allow the sweetness.
Mm.
And then continued to channel. And then I saw myself, doing what she was doing. And after that meditation, she came to me and she said, it's time for you to start sitting on stage with me. So I had had a very natural experience that was then confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that we are spiritually grown, okay, in very loving ways. So that if you're whoever you are, no matter how mainstream or not mainstream you are, your path is going to be one that brings you into wholeness, doesn't take that away. And I think that's very important, because sometimes when we start talking about things like channeling or running energy or hearing voices, that sounds like, no way. That is like so not what I want to do. Guess what? It's not what you have to do.
Yeah.
The whole idea is coming home to the self, to having a sense of purpose in your life, to being happy in who you are. I mean, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to find your ways to express that and to believe it and to know it. So, and for me, channeling has been, it's just part of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And part of my work.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
That
Yeah, that really helps. And the other question that I have is, because you see a lot of people out there channeling this and the star this, and it's like, I don't know, all the time, like. And so I wonder if we're prematurely sort of grasping for that. I hear a lot of people like, I want to channel, I want to, and I used to want to channel because I wanted the answers. I wanted to have answers for myself. And then I started and I realized, I still have no freaking clue. Like, it's not, I still have to live this work day in and day out. This isn't, something that takes us away from the path.
Exactly.
So I just wonder, like, when there's that desire for that and it's still coming from an external in.
Well, I also think that's kind of part of natural curiosity. It's like, look at kids, right? We want to play grown-ups, or, I would dress. I mean, we played everything when I was growing up, and it's sort of like, our imagination is also what stimulates and motivates us. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, the thing I would just caution is you don't want to move into fantasy about it and just be making things up because that's really, fantasy like that is just attached to the ego, the egoic idea of, I'm going to channel or something. It's not seeing it from the broader perspective. Mm-hmm. And I always tell, students this too, in terms of the work and, as a healer, whatever. And I believe everybody's a healer. I really do. I believe as you, become true to yourself, you are going to express your healership, however that is, whether that's running a company, being an actress, doing hands-on work, as a therapist, as a chef, as a mom, as a dad, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Healing is a state of being, okay? So that, in these imaginings of how you might want to be, if you allow yourself to kind of naturally grow into those places, then it's going to be expressed in a very meaningful way, not a fantastical way.
Right. That helps. And so what are some of the indicators that we've moved into fantasy?
That's a good question. Well, I mean, speaking for myself,
Well, speaking for myself, I usually have an agenda behind it if there's some.
That's a good place. Stop right there. If you have an agenda, an attachment,
Yeah.
expectation, it's very easy to flip into fantasy.
Yeah.
That's why I always say, whenever you're doing the work, you're included and you're also giving yourself over
Right.
to something that's greater than you.
Right. Yep.
And if you don't include that, then you typically have an agenda going.
Right. Yeah. So that's the fine line, of walking that path and returning to self. And it's quite a journey to hold all of that as we open, because those gifts naturally arise. Like, you didn't expect to hear that voice, but you were doing your meditation and your practice, and those gifts, that ability to sense and perceive more than just what we know as physical and true, it opens. So
it does.
Yeah.
It does. That is the adventure. That's the great thing. And so for everybody who's asking those questions for themselves, I just say, keep going for it. Really keep going for yourself. It really does just get better.
Yeah. It's nice to hear that.
Yeah.
And have that experience as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's one thing to say it, and it's another thing to have it.
Yeah, it's true. So we're coming to the end of our session. Is there anything that you want to just share with us that hasn't been touched upon today?
I guess the one thing I'd like to share is when I was studying with Byron Katie, we did an exercise, and where that exercise brought me was into a direct experience that no matter who I was sitting with, okay, who I was near, stranger, unknown, or known, okay, what was absolutely a very pure experience was this pervasive peace that's at the core of us. And I call this, this is really like the 0 point field. It's that unitive state. And to know that no matter what is going on in your life, even if you're in front of somebody and you are defending or arguing or embracing, whatever that is, there is that essential experience that really pervades all of creation that we all share in any given moment, and that is absolute peace.
Mm.
So, and it's been great being here with you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just feeling that experience as you talk about it, letting myself tap into it.
So quiet.
Yeah.
So quiet.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing us right into that space and reminding us. Mm. Really, totally an honor to have you here today with us, and I feel really grateful. Thank you.
It's been great being with you, as always.
Oh,
as always, you are such a joy.
Thank you. Okay, well, is there a way we can get in touch with you if we want to learn more about your long distance practice or the school, all those sorts of things?
In terms of my practice, okay, it's full right now.
Okay.
In terms of the school, sure, you could go onto the school's website, the Barbara Brennan School. Okay.
BarbaraBrennan.com.
Yeah, BarbaraBrennan.com. See,
Yep.
And we're also on Facebook, so you can find us there. In the future, if I have openings, I'll certainly let you know. But right now, I'm very busy between teaching.
Yeah.
traveling and
I know. I think I've been sad about that in the past. Like, oh, Laurie's full. Got to catch her while you can.
and that's what's so great. We have all these wonderful graduates like you and thousands of others
Yeah.
who are available.
Yes. So I'll post a link to the school. You can find a graduate on the site if you want to do some deep work with someone, or if you're interested in learning more about how you might be able to participate and learn through what I haven't heard one person ever in the history, maybe one, of the school not get so much of themselves back through that process. So it's amazing.
And I'll tell you, our alumni are incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, really, if you are searching for a support person, a Barbara Brennan graduate is, we come from such diverse backgrounds, so incredibly talented, and always such a strong sense of service and heart that, yeah, find a graduate, go to our website. Cool.
We have one more minute. I'd love to hear what you see as the unfolding for the school in the upcoming.
Oh, wow. 1 minute?
No, it's like a synopsis.
Expansion. I
Expansion.
mean, we're working so much, and really, I've been so moved by our graduates. There's been so much collaboration and creativity and goodwill and the work that they're creating in the world, the different alumni associations and just the enthusiasm too for the work. And it is the Barbara Brennan School is such a powerful path of transformation, and we have students who come from 54 countries. Speaking many different languages, all different religions, all different walks of life, and they're all coming to get more of themselves.
Yes.
And then they take that out. I mean, 2,500 graduates. So can you imagine the millions of lives that have been touched, not just by those who come to the school, but by those who then go out and take their worship into the world. So I see growth.
It's amazing community to be a part of. Just that alone to experience everybody so fully expressing themselves in different ways. It's like the inspiration is endless.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so check out this site. Please post a comment here. What's one gem you took from Laurie? How are you going to implement it? Let us share with us. We're going to be active here. I'll let Laurie know if you post, and I'll respond to you personally. So yeah, please let's get some conversation going, and follow some of the links here to find out more about the school and about Laurie.
Great. Thanks,
Jill. Thank you. Bye.